for me, I have a lot of confidence, just because I've already beat here and, I just won Worlds, the biggest tournament where I'm fighting the best competitors. And I feel like she's not putting herself out there and that the girls that I'm fighting against for to fight her, like, I don't think it would go that well for her. And
Hello, friends. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Mayn Idea Podcast, where today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Jessa Khan. A quick reminder for those of you that love this show, please take 30 seconds and leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and subscribe to the YouTube channel. This helps the show get discovered organically and helps me continue to bring on amazing guests. The other way that you can support the show is by sharing it with someone who loves Jiu Jitsu. Send them your favorite episode and let them become part of the community and learn from some of the greatest minds that Jiu Jitsu and other people in the health and fitness industry have to offer. Jessa Khan is a Jiu Jitsu black belt and 2023 IBJJF World Champion. She will be fighting Danielle Kelly on September 29th in the One Championship event, which will be streaming on Amazon Prime for the women's atomweight title. I hope that you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Without further ado, Jessa Khan. So, Jessa, I want to start with a quote that I heard you say after you won the IBJJF World Championships, and I thought this was beautiful. And you said that doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. And it was a pretty emotional moment when you've just won and you're talking about this experience. And I want to know what brought you to that moment where you feel like you made the realization of what that phrase really means?
just me even making it to the finals was like such a big deal for me. Um, I'm sure you've watched Worlds in the
Yep.
past, but normally you have to win, especially for the girls. It's a little bit different than the guys bracket. The girls, you have to win all of your fights on Saturday, and then the Sunday is just the finals.
Yep.
But for guys, it's different. Guys normally just do one fight, and then they do all three fights on Sunday. So for girls, I feel like, especially for my division, it's always been a lot harder for me to make it to that second day. And that was my first step. You
Yep.
know, I don't like to think too far ahead because I feel like sometimes you miss out of like what's right in front of you.
Yep.
So I was just trying to take it one step at a time. My first step was just winning my fights on Saturday and making it to Sunday. And then once I realized that I finally made it to the finals, that I was just like so happy. Me
Yeah.
and Professor Gee, we were just so stoked because that was like a huge deal for me. I fought Worlds 2 times before that, and I lost like first round,
Yeah.
and like couldn't even make it to the second round. And now I'm like, wow, I just won 3 matches in a row, like against good competitors, and now I'm in the finals for Worlds. So yeah, it was a huge step. And then something that made it feel even more real was I don't know if you've seen it, but on Sunday when they do the finals, they break down the mats. There's only like 2 mats, and you're gonna fight on one big one, and they actually have both the athletes in separate corners at the pyramid. And then it's just like you have your own little mat, you're warming up, then you look across, it's your
They're
opponent
warming
warming
up.
up, and then after they call both people's names and you both walk out. And I remember seeing that as like a little kid watching like Professor Gee, Hoffa, and like
Yeah.
all these other like superstars that I looked up to. And I always like wondered like what that felt like, and like to be in that position one of these days. And like I finally got to do that. So I thought that was like such a cool experience for me. And then,
Yeah.
just to top it off, I ended up winning Worlds.
I mean, to flip the switch there, you are a superstar, like to grow up and look at that and idolize it and wonder, and now be in a position where not only are you excelling, but you're also being recognized for your efforts. I feel like that's one part of being an athlete that's always tough is everyone is working hard. Everyone is grinding and training,
Yeah,
right? Everyone's trying because you're the best, and you're not going to go compete against someone who's just started. You're going to go compete against the best in the world. So it could be anybody's day on any given day, but the fact
yeah,
that you're
for sure.
there, it's all lining up, and now you're getting ready to be on this huge international card. I mean, what does that feel like? You got Stamp Fairtex headlining the card. I mean, she's an international superstar. You're right there, and going up against someone who you have a history with. I mean, how exciting is this for you?
It's really exciting. I had a shot at becoming world champion this year, and now I have another opportunity to also become a champion for women's submission grappling and get the belt. It's a big stepping stone for like history in jiu-jitsu, especially women's jiu-jitsu. And I have the
Absolutely.
opportunity to be the first woman to capture that title for the submission grappling for one championship, and I think that's amazing. And also, yeah, for this card, it's an all-woman card, and
Yep.
I think that's so awesome because like you never see that anywhere. And I think it's great because it's not that one's just growing jiu-jitsu, it's also growing different martial arts, and I
Mhm.
really respect that. And I'm glad that all the other girls are also getting like their opportunity to shine.
How did that opportunity come about?
So I've actually been signed with one for a year now, and I still never
Mhm.
got around to doing the fight. There are a couple opponents that they offered me, but me and my professor Gee, we never just felt like it was the right opponent or like the right time because I was still like in my gi season. But right after I won Worlds, like literally right after, then like they reached out and they're like, "Do you want to do a title fight against Danielle?" I was like, "Win another title?" I was like, "Sure, I'll do that."
Yeah, confidence
So
has
yeah.
to be at an all-time high coming off a victory like that and really cementing yourself cementing yourself in the history books of women's jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu in general to be a champion. Was there a moment, maybe we can rewind the clock back to kind of how you got into jiu-jitsu, what really brought you into the sport, why the draw towards this incredible art where we roll around in pajamas and choke people out for fun? What was that what was the kind of initial thing that got Jessa Khan introduced to jiu-jitsu and grappling, and then what really made it stick for you? Why is it something you wanted to keep going with?
Okay, yeah. So I'll give you a little background because it kind of adds up to the story. But my dad was in the Navy for about 20 years now,
Yep.
and we were kind of bouncing around from state to state. And I was born in Texas, and then I moved to California. After that, I started moving to Hawaii, and Hawaii is where I started my journey with jujitsu. Prior to that, while I was living in California, I was actually training karate. I was doing
Yep.
other sports, but the only martial art at the time was karate. And initially, when I moved to Hawaii, me and my parents were looking for another karate studio, but then I just never found any that I liked.
Hmm.
So then, in that same shopping plaza was actually a jiu-jitsu place, and my dad ended up just taking me there. And he was like, "Oh, it's another martial art. Like, let's try it out. Let's see if it's like similar to karate or like whatever." We didn't really know too much info going in.
Yep.
And then just after my first class, I've just always loved it and stuck with it. I think because I started when I was 8, so that's like a great time for like a
Yeah.
kid to like do a bunch of activities and like make friends. So it was like really fun for me to do jiu-jitsu and always like be there. And I had all these friends that were like training with me and stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, that's kind of where I started at like a House and Gracie jiu-jitsu school.
Did you ever feel like giving up?
Yeah, I mean there was definitely times where I feel like that's normal. Like everyone, has times where they have like self-doubt about themselves.
Yep.
Growing up, like throughout my kid belts and like the young like adult belts, like purple to brown, I didn't really feel that because I was like on a good winning streak and I never really had someone to challenge me, which wasn't my fault. It's just, the time and place. Like there was just no one in the division that, could give me like the right challenge.
Yep.
So whenever I got to black belt, that's when things kind of started going downhill for
Things are
me.
a
So
little
it was like,
different.
yeah, no, I was like, things are
Yeah.
different here. Like now it's like anyone that I go against, whether it's like the first round or the second round, like everyone's a black belt and everyone's like really good. So it's not like you're gonna go against like some chump. It's like people are good at black belt, no matter who you go against. And I guess that was like a tough pill to swallow and like for me to handle because I never really faced a challenge throughout my other years. So like
Yep.
it was unexpected for me and like how to approach the situation too. So, like anyone would do after a loss, like, they go back to the academy, they're fired up to like, train more, get better, and then try to win the next tournament. And I kept doing that. And then while I was doing that, I kept losing. And I'm just like, man, like nothing is working.
Yeah.
That creates like self doubt because then it makes you question yourself, like, oh, like I'm putting in all this work and like it's still not working out for me. Like I still haven't had my time. And then it makes you think like, should I still keep competing? And like, is it worth it? And then for me thinking like that, it made me even feel bad about training. Then I started to resent
Right.
going to training and not enjoying it. And then yeah, I went through this whole little phase because it was just it gets tough. Like with any athlete. Like athlete life is hard.
It's so hard. But I think having been an athlete in other disciplines, one thing that's very unique about jujitsu is that you're getting beat up when it's not going well. Like growing up skiing competitively, which is what I did way before finding jujitsu. If I was having a bad day skiing or like I couldn't figure something out, it's tough. It's tough to deal with. So you go back to the drawing board and you work on it. When you're having a bad day on the mats, someone's knee is in your sternum. They're choking you out.
Yeah.
They're hyperextending your elbow. They're outpacing you. They're out scrambling you. They're knee slicing you. It's like having a bad day in training is so much worse than having a bad day on the basketball court where you're like missing shots. So then you're really faced, and I think even in the 6 years that I've been doing jiu-jitsu, and I'm sure you've seen this a trillion times, you see so many people stop because of exactly that. They're faced with that failure or difficulty, and they're not quite sure how to handle it. Where you could fail and go back to the drawing board and then keep working and keep training. I get another training partner, work on something with your coach. I think a lot of people hit that, and it's so overwhelming that they get stuck and then they leave.
Yeah, it happens to most people. Like I said, I've been in black belt for about 3 years now, and like those first 2 years were really tough, and like that's pretty much how I was feeling. So yeah, I was like actually like serious about like not competing anymore and like limiting my training because it wasn't fun, and like I was trying to think about like different career paths if
Ugh.
I wasn't gonna like stick with jiu-jitsu, and like it got
It's
really like
like the
it's
voices
sad. Yeah.
they start going like this, right? They, hey, you could do this or you could do that. What is your
Yeah,
secret
I
to?
was like scrambling around trying to think of like other ideas I could do because I was like, man, I've been doing jiu-jitsu my whole life. I don't know what else I have for myself right now. But then,
What do you think
after
is like your secret to that mental fortitude? That way to find a way to keep going, to truck through those moments of doubt, of despair, of being down, things not going your way. Like what keeps you going, keeps pushing you through that?
yeah, so I mean, it's different for everyone, but at least what worked for me was the people you surround yourself with. I don't know if you've been to AOJ or not, but they're
One time.
very that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's very like strong-minded people there,
Yeah.
and everyone's on a mission there. Like everyone wants to train hard. They're hungry. They want to become this superstar. They want to win a world, the black belt, and it's hard to be around people and feel a certain way, like you want to give up, because those are
Yeah.
the type of people that they're not going to let you just stop and give up. And Professor Gee and my boyfriend Zach, who I started jiu-jitsu with, they played a big role in that and on me continuing. They just kept trying to like reassure myself that like, I'm still good, I still got it, and that like things they take time, and especially
Yeah.
for the black belt, like it takes time. I mean, there's some people that we see online that like, they win everything in the color belts and then they win everything in the black belt,
Yeah.
but then I was like, it's unrealistic. Like, there's only like a couple, less than five people that I can name that have actually had their whole career like that. Like,
Yeah.
that's not like it's not normal. And I guess like there are some people that are at AOJ that are like that, so it kind of makes you feel bad. I'm like, oh, like my journey's not like that. Like, I should just stop now because I was like, I already messed up because I was already on like a losing streak for like 2 years in the black belt. So all of that adds up. But honestly, if it wasn't for like the people that were close to me, like I probably would have like gave up on myself. But I really tried to think about like all the work that I put in throughout the years, all the sacrifices I did, that my family did for me
Yeah.
just to get me here. And I was just thinking that like, if I were to stop now and like look back in like another year, that I would regret it. Because in jiu-jitsu, like most people are in their prime, early 20s,
Yep.
and so it's like if you take a break for a year and you stop, like it's kind of hard to get back like on that track, if you're
And there's
already having
just
like
so
such a hard
much
time.
there's just so much intuitive learning that happens. Like there's so much body mechanic awareness and
Yeah.
intuition in how you train and how you roll and how you move, that again, comparing it to other sports, it's hard to be away from it and come back. I think to some degree, being away from jujitsu in small amounts can be good because you can forget bad habits and you can see things in a different light. But if you were to take a year off at a high level like that, I can only imagine that the strides that your opponents would make in that time would be like hard to overcome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. I just kept thinking like all my hard work would have been for nothing then if I just stopped now. And I knew that I would regret it because I wanted to give myself a chance to like actually like go in 100%, like feeling
Mm-hmm.
good with the camp, like mindset, everything. And I know if I can dedicate 100% to anything I do, that it's definitely possible for me to win. And then, this year ended up going good for me. I ended up winning worlds, and like that's, I think it was just a sign from God. Like I needed that.
How much, you mentioned your faith there. How valuable is it to be able to put things above yourself as an athlete, as a competitor?
I mean, I think all of that's valuable. I feel like, because most people like, they get kind of like selfish about like, oh, like it's just me, like I'm the one that's doing all the work, but it's like it's other people too that are helping you.
Yeah.
So I know there's like a couple athletes that I met that, try to think of it that it's just all their hard work and that they should just thank themselves and like for getting them work. Which I mean, it's true. I mean, you did get yourself there, but it's like all the people. Like I said, I've moved around to so many different states. I can name some of the other ones because I didn't get to go over it, but
Yeah.
I lived in
Go for it.
Texas, California, Hawaii, Maine, Virginia, and then back to California. And then my dad retired after 20 years.
Yeah.
Then that's when we officially moved back to AOJ. And then, I've had so many coaches and like training partners and like all those people like in my lives, like they have helped me get to where I am. And
Yeah.
like, I just want to make sure that like I don't forget that because like, even though they're not really part of my journey now, but they were at some point and they've probably like helped me reach my goal.
So I like you, not due to family in the military, but for other circumstances, spent a ton of time moving around growing up. Washington, Boston, Hawaii, also Kauai,
Oh,
California,
nice. I love Kauai.
Colorado. Yeah, love it. We lived like right near Kilauea. Um,
Oh, nice.
New Mexico. I've spent my whole life traveling around and going to different places. With your experience of having been in so many different places, lived in so many different places, constantly meeting new people, making new friendships, relationships, training partners, stuff like that. When you reflect on AOJ, what do you think it is about that academy that is different? Because it is a juggernaut. I mean, not only is and from the one time that I was there, just from top down, like the aesthetic of the building, the cleanliness, how prepared everyone is about everything. Like from the second you get there to the second you leave, if you're a visitor, if you're an athlete, everything is just done extremely well. And then on top of that, you're getting very high level current competitors instructing. So the teaching is like some of the best that you'll get. As an athlete there, as someone who's been on those mats for so long, what do you feel is the X factor for AOJ? Why is it such a force in jiu-jitsu?
Um, something that made a lot of people go there, especially me as a young kid. Um, I would say that the professor, Guy and Hoffa, they're kind of like what made everyone go there. Because obviously, I've had other coaches, and other academies are great and successful, but there's a difference in the coaching because some of those professors they weren't like world champions. They never really won anything, so sometimes it's hard
Right.
to relate to them, even though they are a great teacher.
That's
And
fair.
something that I think really stuck out at AOJ was that Guy and Hoffa, they're the people that we wanted to be, and
Mhm.
now we're starting to become like them. Like they were young black belts, successful. They were winning worlds and all these other big tournaments, and that's like kind of what I wanted to be. And now I feel like that's like what I'm starting to be now. I finally won my first world title with them,
Right.
and just every like um everything that I face, like they've gone through already. So they kind of have like an answer or like some advice to always give us. And I think that's something that like helps us relate more to them and get closer to AOJ, because like if they could do it and they know like the steps of how to get there, why not like give yourself the best chance of doing that and having like the best mentor. So I think that's, as like from a competitor like standpoint, that's like kind of like what made us go to AOJ versus like other academies that I've been to.
Yeah, I think that coaching element is invaluable in any sport. When you have someone who has been through it truly to the degree that you're trying to go through it, it's a different level of like honesty in the advice that they give you. Whereas, and I've had in different sports, I've had great coaches on both sides of that coin. Some that are former world class competitors, and some that just are really good coaches. Like they get the sport and they can communicate about it. But when you're seeking advice in those trying moments, being able to talk to someone who's a living example of like everything that you're trying to do, it's so meaningful. They've been coaching you for how many years now?
Yeah, so AOJ actually opened up in 2012 in like July. And then I actually went there in December of 2012. My my boyfriend Zach,
Yep.
I actually started jiu-jitsu with him in Hawaii when we were 8 years old. And
Wow.
once he found out that once his family found out that AOJ was opening in California,
Yeah.
they knew that he was already really dedicated to jiu-jitsu, so they ended up just making the move from Hawaii to California. And then at
Wow.
that month in December of 2012, me and my family, we went out there just to also check it out since I seen that Zach had moved there. But then yeah, no, I loved it ever since. And then, but like I said, my dad was in the Navy, so we couldn't quite just move to California and start training there.
Right.
So only up until 2016 is when he retired, and we were finally able to move back to California and start training at AOJ full time. Prior to that, I would come every single summer and stay with Zach and his family and
So
just do a
rad.
training camp. Yeah.
Yeah. How is that like being in a jujitsu focused relationship and you're both competitors, you're both high level. Uh, how do you guys keep like your relationship and the importance of like your intimate life and your personal life separate, but also respect the fact that you guys are both absolute phenoms in the sport?
Yeah. A lot of people, they always ask like, what do we do if we fight? Like, do we just spar? Or
Just
like,
joke.
that's the first question people ask. I'm like,
You're like, I
yeah,
just throw them in a triangle,
if
and
he
I'm
doesn't
like,
use strength.
yeah. That is,
But
I
no, yeah,
mean, you do have like, if there's ever an argument, right, you could just throw down a mat, be like, okay, 3 taps and we'll reset this. That's actually a great way to settle a dispute.
that's actually a good one. I might bring that up to him in case we get in another fight or something.
You'll be like,
But,
we did this drill the other day where everything we were trained no gi, but you train with tennis balls in your hands. Have you ever done that?
oh yeah, we actually do that at AJ with like little bean bags.
Yeah, so like you can't obviously use your grips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you learn about a lot about body pressure, but you could be like, "Hey, we're gonna settle this. You got to use tennis balls."
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
maybe you could
awesome.
write a book on how to resolve relationship disputes via jujitsu matches. I don't know if
That'd
that
be
would
cool.
sell very well.
Yeah, I've known Zach since I was 8 years old. We started jiu-jitsu in Hawaii together.
Yeah.
Like I said, 2012 is when his family made the move to California, start, training at AOJ full time. Up until then, yeah, I was staying with his family every summer and coming just to Pan Kids, because at the time Pan Kids was in California. Now it's only in Florida.
Yep.
But I would come for those events, and then yeah, 2016, my dad wanted to retire, and we're like, I want to go back to AOJ, because at the time I was still training jiu-jitsu a lot, but like I was still going to regular school because I was still only like an orange and a green belt. But
Yep.
whenever I got there towards the end of 2016, I started getting my blue belt for like start entering like my juvenile years, and I was just like, oh, like this is what I want to do full time, especially like actually being there versus like just seeing it from like the East Coast and seeing everything online. I was like, I'm actually here, and like I know that this will probably be the most important stage, juvenile all the way to the black belt. This is where it starts, and I need to dedicate more time. So I
Yeah.
started being homeschooled for high school,
So that you
and
could perform and compete.
Yeah, just so,
Nice.
I could dedicate myself a little bit more to jiu-jitsu.
I
But yeah,
respect
so I
that.
did that.
I went to a high school where part of the high school's curriculum is that you get out of school every day to go to ski training. So you go to
Oh,
school earlier than all
that's
the other
cool.
kids, but then you leave earlier to go to ski training. So it's very, I totally get it. Like, I wouldn't have gone to public school if that wasn't an offering, because all I cared about was competing at this high level. And the reality is, if someone else is willing to make those sacrifices and you're not, then you're not going to have a leg up in the competition. So you kind of have to make those choices. Was that kind of weird or tough, going away
Yeah.
from social life, public schooling, to pursue something that most people probably don't even understand in the first place?
Yeah, a lot of people ask if like I feel like if I regret it just because like I missed out on some stuff. Um
But you know
I mean
what?
there are,
They ain't world champions. So,
yeah, pretty much. But there are some stuff like that, I obviously wish I could have experienced going to regular high school, just
yep.
more of that interaction, going to prom, never did that. But I'm glad that I did make the decision. I think it was the right decision for me. Definitely got me to my goals a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And yes, I think
Well,
that's
I'll tell you from experience, prom,
yeah,
super lame.
overrated, huh?
IBJJF World Champion, really, really cool. Prom's like bad dance songs and just like awkwardness, but when you're like a certified badass globally, I think I would take that. I would go back
Yeah.
and not go to prom, and then I would go to IBJJF World Championship. So
Yeah, that's a
you're
better idea.
with your upcoming bout against Danielle Kelly, you know her. You've competed against her in the past. You won by decision. What's the recipe? I feel like for athletes in combat sports, going against someone again, although there's confidence in that, you also know that that person's busting their ass because they don't want to get beat twice by the same person. So the
Yeah.
rematch actually has very high stakes whenever we see it, whether it's in MMA, whether it's in jiu-jitsu, whether it's in submission only grappling. The rematch is always high stakes. So going into this, how are you preparing? How do you want to finish the fight? And what do you expect her to bring to the table?
Yeah, no. You know, just since I did win that first match, I obviously do have some confidence going to myself, um, going into this fight. And then, also just for me, I have a lot of confidence, just because I'm ready to be here and, I just won Worlds, the biggest tournament where I'm fighting the best competitors.
Right.
And I feel like she's not putting herself out there and that if the girls that I'm fighting against for to fight her, like I don't think it would go that well for her. And that's how I like to think of it as my at training too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm training with the best girls at AOJ. We're all like pretty similar in size, but like still like split up with like, our belt ranks and stuff.
Yep.
But I feel like if she were to come train at AOJ that like um everyone would be able to, have a good round with her. And like
Yeah.
that kind of gives me confidence because I'm like if I just think it like that, like if she were to come here, like yeah, be no questions if I could get a submission or not. But obviously it's different when we're going on like a big stage in front of everyone. She definitely will come out hungry. I know right after she lost that match, she did a like post interview and like right after she wanted to go with me again
To
already.
rematch.
So yeah, so I was like definitely after 2 years, she's probably even more hungry now. And
How,
this time it's on a much bigger stage. And right now she has a lot of hype just because she's done 3 fights with him. So I mentioned that she might be a little bit more comfortable just because she's been in that atmosphere before, and this would be my first time, competing with this organization, and the first time that I'm gonna fight in the cage and stuff. So she might be a little bit more comfortable in that stage. But overall, I feel like with just our jiu-jitsu level, that like no matter what and like no matter where we fight, like still have that reassurance that I'm gonna still come out with the win. And, this time I'm looking to get a submission. Last time that we fought, I did win by decision, and I was, dominating the fight. I was just unable to get a submission. She had a really good defense, and she's just very flexible, so I couldn't catch anything on her. But that's something that always bugged me.
yeah.
But so this time, I'm definitely hunting for that submission.
So let's go Gordon Ryan moment here. What are you going to submit her with? Do you feel confident enough to call out the actual submission? Because look, I think on this stage, it's it is as a viewer, as a fan, someone who watches these fights, it is exciting because it's only one person. You're only going against one person. It's not these grueling IBJJF days where you could have 6 matches in a day, and you're just grinding, and by the end of it, you're barely holding it together, and your forearms are all swollen, your fingernails are ripped off, and like you're making it happen. You know who it's going to be, you know the exact time limit, and it's a stage. It's a big stage, so you'll either come alive or crumble under that setting. I think you're going to come alive, right?
Yeah.
What do you think that you can hit her with?
I'll name a couple of stuff that I tried in my past fight with her.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've obviously been studying that match and also rewatching some of like her latest matches.
Yep.
So there are a couple of submissions that I tried to do on her back then was like, trying to attack her legs, like knee bars, try to go for like a toe hold, try to go for arm bars. And I feel like if you go against someone flexible, those are actually like those submissions that like they don't really tap to. So I
Yeah,
feel like
they're tough.
this time around, I'm gonna look to go for a choke because I was like, no one's flexible with their neck. I don't think
Straight.
so. So yeah, I've been working on a couple different ways to get to the head.
Yeah.
Some situations I've been working is either like they'll go for a takedown, counter catching the head. There's ways that I can set that up from my guard, or just even just being on top. Trying to connect the pass and find a way to take the back and then get a rear naked choke. So just working on bunch of different setups of getting like to the head.
Yep.
Ideally, I would like to get to the back and get a choke. AOJ is
I
known for taking the back, but we'll
there.
see.
So, it's funny. So the one time that I went to AOJ, I was picking up a surfboard in Costa Mesa, and I was like, "Wow, well, I usually train on this day, so why don't I jump in there?" So I just did a drop in and had like great training. Right when I walked in, though, I walked by this guy, and I mean, he had his ears were all blown out, and it looked like someone who's probably grappled for like 13 years, 14 years. And we were all training. I think Cole led the class. It was an incredible instruction. We did a couple of rounds, and then I kind of like looked up last couple of rounds, and whoever this was, I don't know who they were. I wish I remembered. They kind of point at me and they're like, "Hey, do you want to train?" I was like, "Sure." And I just got absolutely trounced. I mean, it was an all-out round, probably zero effort on his part, and it was like 90% effort on my part, just like over and over, it just smashed. And I left kind of stoked. I mean, hard training sessions are the best training sessions. You feel so good when they're done. He was super cool, really respectful at the end, and I was like, you know what, if this is the walk-in kind of what you can get if you just drop in, I bet that these training sessions, when it's team training and you guys are focused on a goal and you have an upcoming tournament, it's just dogs training hard as hell. And if that's the energy that you bring, I feel sorry.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Did you do like a night nogi class with Cole?
No, it was a
Or,
no-gi class in the middle of the day. I want to say it was
oh,
like a
okay.
noon class.
Yeah.
I brought stuff. I
Was
didn't
it
know that like
recently?
no, this was like a year ago.
Oh, okay.
It was just like a noon drop-in class. It was awesome. I honestly, if I was closer, I would train there all the time. I
Yeah,
really
where do you
love
live?
that school in Encinitas.
Oh,
So
okay.
like San Diego, just it's a little too far for like multiple times a week. But anytime I go up there, I
Yeah.
try to drop in and train because it's awesome. Like I said, it's fantastic instruction and it's world class people that know exactly what they're talking about, yourself included. So, well, I'm excited. I'm excited to see. Can you get to the back? Can you make it happen on a massive stage? And this is a potential fork in the road for you, right? I mean, this could getting in with this organization, having a performance like this. Who knows where this can take you? Did you ever think that you would be here?
Honestly, no. And that's something
Love
that
it.
that's a question. That's a question that a lot of people have been asking because growing up, you know, there wasn't too many goals that
Mm-hmm.
people had in jiu-jitsu. The main ones was, become a IBJJF Black Belt World Champion, to own a jiu-jitsu school or be an MMA fighter. Those were your three options back in the day.
Yeah.
So that was kind of stuck with me when I was little. But then as I started growing up, being in AOJ's atmosphere, they're very good when it comes to like running a business.
Hmm.
So I kind of got to learn from that. And then, just I never thought that, jiu-jitsu would make it that far where, we have a platform like one championship, like, putting on like these cards, especially like all female cards,
Yep.
for all these different martial arts, and then even making it to Amazon Prime. I never thought that. For me, I thought like, oh, just winning worlds. That's a main goal.
Yeah.
But then, I finally was able to achieve that goal after 3 years, and now like I have another goal, and that's to try to, become the first woman to get the title for submission grappling for one championship. So I'm really excited for that.
Well, it's really cool to see you be part of history, and the downline effects of that are incredible. I mean, there's young girls that are getting into jiu-jitsu for the first time ever, and they're looking up to you and seeing an example of a way to go, someone to be, someone to idolize, to try to be like. And that's extremely powerful because you have no idea the impact that you're going to have on those girls' lives. And some of them you'll never even meet, right? Some of them you will,
Yeah.
but that is incredible. And yeah, to be on Amazon Prime, on the biggest streaming service in
Yeah.
the world, headlining a fight, and you were like just doing this as a kid, kid belt going around.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Well, Jessa, I want to be respectful of your time. So stoked that we got to have you on here, and I really look forward to watching you in the One Championship event, September 29th. Any last words?
Yes. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you. Yeah, if you're ever in town, definitely come stop by AOJ, come train. It'd be nice to meet you in person. Um, like I said, thank you for supporting. And yeah, I'm really excited for my fight September 29th on Amazon Prime.
She called it here. I think a body triangle from the back, rear naked choke, maybe something like that. I don't know. But you can reference this episode after the event and know that it was said here. So thank you, Jessa.
Yeah, thank you.